Fear made his name immortal. Vlad III of Wallachia didn't just rule his people, he haunted them. His legacy was not built on castles or conquests, but on forests of the impaled, their screams echoing across the land long after the killing was done. In 15th century Eastern Europe, violence was part of daily life. Wars raged, rulers fell to assassins, and executions drew crowds with the same inevitability as market days. Only here, the spectacle was death. Yet even in an age accustomed to brutality, Vlad's methods went further, acts of cruelty so calculated that they became as much performance as punishment. To some he was a monster. To others, the only barrier between their homeland and the unstoppable Ottoman Empire. This is not a story softened by myth or dressed in the cloak of vampire fiction. It is the account of the real Vlad, a ruler whose reality was far more terrifying than any legend. Hit subscribe for more dark history tales. As part of a political agreement, Vlad and his younger brother were sent to the Ottoman court as hostages, a common way to secure a ruler's loyalty. In the Sultan's palace, Vlad saw how fear could hold an empire together. Justice delivered without delay, punishments carried out in public, and executions staged to crush rebellion before it began. These lessons would leave a lasting impression. When Vlad returned to Wallachia, his family had been torn apart. His father, Vlad II Dracul, was murdered by rival nobles. His elder brother, Mircea, was captured by Hungarian forces, tortured, and buried alive. In a land where alliances shifted quickly and betrayal was routine, Vlad came to believe that a ruler had two choices: inspire fear or be destroyed. When Vlad seized the throne in 1456, Wallachia was weakened by civil war, threatened by the Ottomans to the south and the Hungarians to the north. The boyars, powerful nobles, had grown used to manipulating rulers and serving their own interests. Most leaders in his position relied on diplomacy to balance these pressures. Vlad chose a different path. To secure his rule, he turned to impalement, a method already known in the region, but refined under his command into a slow and deliberate death. Victims were placed on blunt stakes to prolong suffering, often in locations where their agony could be seen for miles. For Vlad, this was more than punishment. It was a warning, meant to deter rebellion before it began. Impalement was Vlad's signature, but not his only method. Chroniclers describe victims flayed alive, boiled in water or oil, or crushed slowly so that death came in stages. These punishments were targeted at those he saw as threats, nobles who plotted against him, criminals, or corrupt merchants. The aim was always the same: to make an example that others would not forget. One of his most notorious acts came during Easter of 1459. Vlad invited the boyars of Târgoviște to a grand feast, presenting it as a gesture of reconciliation. Midway through, his guards sealed the hall. The older nobles were executed on the spot. The younger ones, along with their families, were forced to march to Poenari fortress and work as laborers until many collapsed from exhaustion. The event eliminated much of the old nobility, replacing them with a population too intimidated to challenge him again. Stories of Vlad's punishments spread quickly through merchants, travelers, and diplomats, often because he let witnesses live to carry the tales home. A German merchant described Târgoviște's central square as a forest of the dying, with hundreds of victims impaled in patterns. The sight and stench were so overwhelming that trade had to be conducted outside the city walls. In 1461 or 1462, an Ottoman delegation refused to remove their turbans before Vlad, citing religious custom. He appeared to accept this, then ordered the turbans nailed to their skulls. The envoys were executed, violating one of the core rules of diplomacy. This act turned tense relations with Sultan Mehmed II into open hostility, setting the stage for direct conflict. When Mehmed II invaded Wallachia in 1462, Vlad knew he could not defeat the Ottoman army in open battle. Instead, he used scorched earth tactics, burning villages, destroying crops, poisoning wells, and leaving impaled victims in plain sight. Some settlements were staged to look inhabited from a distance, only to reveal rows of corpses on closer approach, scenes designed to weaken the enemy's morale before fighting began. That June, Vlad led a surprise night attack aimed at the Sultan's personal tent. Mehmed escaped, but the chaos proved that even the most powerful ruler was not beyond Vlad's reach. As his forces retreated, Vlad captured hundreds of Ottoman soldiers and ordered their impalement along the road back to the Ottoman lines, ensuring their comrades would witness their suffering. The psychological impact slowed the advance, though at great cost to Vlad's own resources. By 1462, Vlad's reliance on terror had destroyed much of his domestic support. The boyars who once formed the political backbone of Wallachia were dead, in exile, or too afraid to act. Trade declined as merchants avoided his territory, and even allies began to see him as unpredictable and dangerous. That same year, Hungarian forces captured Vlad and held him in custody for 12 years. Officially, it was protective detention, but in reality it reflected a growing belief among his allies that his presence did more harm than good. During his imprisonment, stories of his cruelty spread across Europe, often exaggerated but rooted in eyewitness accounts. These tales would fuel the legend that later inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula. Vlad briefly regained the throne in 1476, but his power was weakened. His old tactics no longer carried the same fear, and his enemies had adapted to them. That same year, he was killed in battle, likely surrounded and outnumbered, and his head was sent to Sultan Mehmed II as proof of his death. His final months reflected the paradox of his rule. The fear that once secured his position had also left him isolated, without strong allies or loyal supporters when he needed them most. Over time, the historical Vlad III became intertwined with legend. German pamphlets and foreign chronicles spread stories of his cruelty across Europe, some factual, others exaggerated. Centuries later, these accounts would inspire Bram Stoker's fictional vampire, Dracula, a character far less horrifying than the real man. Vlad's rule showed that fear could be an effective short-term tool for consolidating power and deterring enemies. Yet it also proved self-destructive, eroding alliances and crippling the stability of his realm. Modern historians see in Vlad a mix of calculated strategy and personal sadism. His reign remains a case study in how unchecked power, shaped by a violent environment, can push a ruler beyond the limits of political necessity into the realm of systematic cruelty. Vlad III's reign is a stark reminder of how power, when unchecked by conscience, can shape both history and legend. He eliminated rivals, deterred invasions, and ruled through fear more effectively than many ruled through loyalty. Yet the same terror that secured his position ultimately left him isolated and vulnerable.